Okay. Okay. So this is one of the unconventional practices. But well, someone in the party or your fellow party leaders, one of the leaders, so she said that the Kajang move, has actually destroyed or has actually been very detrimental to Pakatan Rakyat. You know, reflecting on this, right, it has been some years. It has been some time. So when you look at this, do you think that your action or whatever that you have done contributed to the Kajang move? Do you still justify it? Is it still justifiable?
I think a large majority of leadership and also the public out there will quietly say that it was the right decision.
Quietly?
Yeah, but that's the nature of society. They will not admit it. Or my colleagues wouldn't come and say it was the right decision. I mean, we knew beforehand, for example, the previous chief minister had some problems with the loan facility. We knew there had always been complaints about him from other partners. We also knew then that PAS internally, PAS had problems getting on board with the consensus decisions of other parties. It's just that the public actually has a lack in terms of understanding what happens behind the scene, because unlike politicians, the members of the public basically spend not 5% of their time following politics. So they would have seen PAS as being an instrumental part of Pakatan. They wouldn't have believed it if we were to tell the public then that PAS did have a problem about some of the decisions, or they won't follow some of the decisions and they won't follow some of the conventions. The public has to witness it themselves. The public has to judge it themselves. So that's why the Kajang move allow and force that issue to the public and the politicians to confront. Because remember, I say, it's always better in our society to sweep everything under the carpet. We hate confrontations. We leave the problems to brew inside for it to blow. Had, for example, Kajang move had not happened, we would have had a big problem when Datuk Sri Najib had the 1MDB scandal and 2.6. Because one portion of Pakatan Rakyat, if it still exists, PAS, would have taken quite a different position compared to PKR and DAP, because PAS would have viewed the scandal quite differently, as you can see from now, than how the position that is taken by PKR and DAP. It's going to be a big mess. So that's why the crux of the issue then, prior, leading up, and after Kajang move, is whether or not when you have three parties in a coalition, when a decision has been made, whether every single party will follow.
Well, I think your justification now is only, it only leads to what the Kajang move have expedited the marriage, the breakdown of the marriage, because a lot of people have perceived that Pakatan Harapan is actually a marriage of convenience.
Pakatan Harapan or Pakatan Rakyat?
Sorry, Pakatan Rakyat, PR, I'm sorry. So it has just expedited it, but it's how the way things are being done. An elected representative was asked to vacate or resigned to make ways for his political leader or for a political maneuver. So are you someone that actually thinks that your ends justified your means?
Your initial suggestion was wrong. I disagree when you say it's precipitated the demise, because it's like when people get married, you are tested from one crisis, one disagreement, it's a test that you have to go through. If PAS, for example, value the political cooperation within Pakatan Rakyat, they would have had a give and take. Likewise, DAP had give and take. So any political cooperation started off with differences. Just like any marriage starts with differences or the unknowns. As you discover each other, you begin to compromise and you live and let live. That's how just how marriage survives, that's how political cooperation survive as well. So what happened with Kajang Move is not that it precipitated a demise because it was a marriage of convenience. It basically showed that PAS at that point was not committed to that long-lasting political cooperation as committed as PKR, DAP and some parts of PAS, which eventually became Amanah. You know, to your question whether the end justifies the means, to me, so long as it is done within the legal and constitutional boundaries, so long it is explained to the public, so long that it has an objective that is very much driven by public interest rather than political self-interest of a few people, whatever that is legal, that is required to save the very basis of what Pakatan was, and defending the integrity of a chief minister and the integrity of a government of Selangor then was actually a strong reason for us to do it, because it would have been a lot easier if PAS would have took the line. Then there was no necessity for Kajang Move. It's precisely because we know PAS felt then that they were the big brothers of Pakatan, that they wouldn't toe the line, that even though by convention PKR has the right to change our chief minister without going through a lot of hassle, PAS would feel that they have the final say and they would block it. So the only way to do it was to vacate a position and to force the by-election.
Okay, so there is nothing that you would have done differently for Kajang Move?
Well, Kajang Move was a pretext to the political developments that we have now in 2018. If Kajang Move was not done, there wouldn't have been Amanah. And if Pakatan Rakyat did not collapse, I think developments in UMNO would have been different, because Tun Mahathir and Tan Sri Muhyiddin would have been mindful of a stronger opposition when they were confronting Datuk Sri Najib in the case of 1MDB. But because 1MDB happened immediately, or it blew up immediately after the collapse of Pakatan Rakyat, I think it emboldened a lot of UMNO leaders then to confront it, which eventually caused the breakout of UMNO to become Bersatu. And Pakatan Harapan is more streamlined in terms of views, in terms of direction, and the result, I think, part of the result of Kajang Move after 4 years is you have a lot more cohesive opposition coalition going into the next election to take on Najib. So I wouldn't have done anything differently. It's not conventional, but then again, I think there are 1,000 ways to a destination. Sometimes you have to take a long and winding road to go to a destination, even though that destination is right in front of you, because it's safer, and the straight path actually is fraught with danger. So yeah, I wouldn't have done anything differently.
Okay, so talking about whether going straight or doing, go through the long winding road, you are sort of like the whistleblower. So a lot of people think that you have exposed a lot of things, but some think that not all of your expose are legit. Do you want to share how you come to decide what, I think information has come to you. Well, some people think that it's a show.
Why?
It's for a certain purpose. I mean, that's how it's being perceived. But do you care to share how you come to decide what you will be exposing, or
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of people who come with all sorts of issues.
Yes,
every time. The number one consideration is whether or not the information or document is authentic. And number two is whether it has a large public interest. For example, a group of people may come to me and say they got cheated.
Yes.
But even if all the information is authentic, is correct, is bona fide, but it only concerns a small group of people, and it's pretty much, in my opinion, in the private domain of their affairs. So I usually don't take up those issues. As opposed to, for example, there might be someone who comes and say that it is in his knowledge that 20 million people was stolen, 20 million ringgit was stolen, so and so, and is the poor is stolen from a fund for poor people that affects 20,000 poor students. That, in my opinion, has a much wider public implications, and therefore I would take up that case and I would spend time researching on behalf to find out more information. So it's always those two considerations that overrides everything else.
If the information is something against your party or whoever that is from your side of the divide, would you have done the same thing if it
I went to
fulfilled-
SPRM and report.
Yes, true.
I am the only political party leader in this country who went to report against my own party.
True.
Yeah, and I know that this question comes all the time. It's like, why do you whistleblow only against BN and not to your government? Well, because SPRM and policemen and MCA and Gerakan and all the other parties, they are paid and given the state resources to monitor the business and also the dealings of Pakatan run state government. The opposition in those in state governments are actually from BN. So they have the backup of the federal government with them. They have the backup of the police. They should be doing that job. And I find it ridiculous and funny that they are shouting, why are you not exposing this and that against Guan Eng and against Azmin? Because if they have evidence, they would have dragged Azmin or Guan Eng to court immediately. Plus, I mean, whatever I have, I went and reported to SPRM straight away. The one thing that I think most people forget is this. The reason why whistleblowers or people with information come to me to disclose or to expose federal government's corruption is because they have taken this through the normal channel. They had reported this to the police, they had reported this to the SPRM, but because there was no action, they had no other way but to come to an opposition politician. The reverse is actually quite different because it is in the interest of the Barisan Nasional-led federal government to expose and to attack Pakatan-led state government. So the fact that it was not done actually is more is a reflection of the failure on the part of SPRM and policemen and MCA and Gerakan and UMNO rather than on me.
So it's a better utilization of resources.
Correct. I mean, you know what? If I actually have at my disposal 10,000 people, I would have gone and snooped for every single politician. I don't. I only have myself, so I can't,
Okay, you only have yourself to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, in view of the recent judgment, is there a moment after the pronouncement of the judgment that you actually regretted this whistleblowing thing?
You see, this is another thing which I think sometimes I initially I struggled to understand why people can't understand. But eventually I just accepted people are like that. You see, when I disclose a corruption, when I expose a scandal, I think what is most important to me is that I have a public duty and I cannot lie and I have to disclose it because it is a public duty to do it. What I was most concerned, actually over and above the public interest, is that how politics has taken a toll on me. I don't want, as you pointed out much earlier on, I reminded myself all the time that I don't want to lose myself in politics. I don't want to start pick and choose what is right, what is wrong, which one to turn my eyes away, which one to basically turn look the other way around. Exposing and telling the truth actually is about safeguarding what I am. I want to be able to tell myself that nothing has changed, even though I've spent the last 10 years in politics. I am exactly the same person. It doesn't make me become calculative. It doesn't make me become, as I said, I need to toe the line just for my political career. So that's more important to me even than the public interest.
But do you think it make you wiser?
No, it make me at peace with myself. Yeah. Because if I had known, for example, that money was stolen, and I know that other people were not trained in finance the way that I do, and I could understand if other people cannot read accounts, I can read accounts quite readily compared to other people, and I do not do anything, I can't sleep at night because I sleep on the job, and it's a job. I take a good pay. Is it's not the best of pay, but it's not a bad pay, but
it's a huge pay cut.
Yeah, well, what's money after a while? But I mean, I was brought up and that's who I am. That I really want to give the best in everything that I do, and that's why I am highly opinionated, because I just want to get it right. So even as an MP, as a politician with a huge understanding about finance, you know what's going on, but because you think that this may disqualify me from standing, I'll just keep quiet. I mean, that is something that I cannot live with myself, because it compromises your core values. So I got to be who I am, so I shouldn't have any problem. I shouldn't have any regret. In fact, I am really at peace because I think I've passed the test. Okay. I think that I was put in a position where I could choose, the right or left, one option against another, and the fact that I choose the option despite being difficult, it's something that is me. It's something that does not tell me that I put my career or my self-interest above anything else. That's something that I'm very at peace with.
Okay. You belong to the Reformasi generation. That's where you started, you joined PKR and stuff like that. Looking back at what has transpired for close to 2 decades, do you think we are getting better or worse as a country, as a nation? It's a huge question.
That's a very huge, tricky question. Yes and no. This will be used against me, but I think society has become better politically, because
is that for good or for
worse? It's for good. It's for good because I remember when we started out, the room for us to speak like this, the room for me to go on stage and criticize governments, everything was actually very limited. People were very afraid, the young ones stayed away from politics because they think that it's too big a risk to take. Things are a lot better now. Not thanks to Najib though, it's thanks to technology. I think the world has moved so much. The fourth revolution, the IT, the Facebook, the YouTube that we have means no matter what the authorities try in terms of curbing the spread of information, it's just impossible. People will talk, people will share information, and the democratization of information means the public has better options at choosing. They can choose whoever they like. So in that sense, it's better than the 1998. But I think we get worse politically, and it's worse off for Chinese, Indian, Malays, more so. Not so much about the headlines economic numbers. It's just that if we look relatively, despite all the growth that we have had, on average about 4 to 5% for the last 20 years. The fact that people gets much lower disposable income now. The fact that the bottom 40 actually grows much larger now than before. The fact that the gap between the high earners and the low earners get bigger, it means that the inequality in society has grown much bigger. So on the one hand, I think I'm lucky because I lived throughout that 20 years to be able to see that Malaysians as a society has matured a lot politically and socially. But I pity and I fear for the younger ones as they have to struggle in this economic climate.